I'm in the process of buying a house, and that is a life-changing process. Whether or not to take a 15 or a 30-year mortgage.
Never buy a house on more than a 15-year mortgage. Absolutely crazy. Don't do that.
How a 30-year loan can actually save you a lot more money than a 15-year.
If you just got a 15-year instead of a 30-year, you would have saved $120,000.
How carrying a 30-year mortgage will provide you with over $500,000 more in your retirement.
We used to really preach 15-year mortgage is hard. I mean, we used to say it just made sense.
It's always better, in most cases, to do a 30-year or the longer term.
The opinions are all over the place. Some people say 15, some people say 30. Hey guys, welcome back to our unnamed segment where we take a look at recent financial news or things that are going on. You know, I share my opinion on them, apply them to what we talk about on this channel, which is mainly strategizing on your career, moving your career forward, investing money, and then financial literacy, aka not losing money or being duped or conned. Before I dive in, let me introduce my wonderful executive producer. Olivia, you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Olivia. I help produce this new segment on New Rules Podcast and just overall keep Keril on track and flowing.
On track and flowing, and could not do it without you. So, Olivia, as you know, we've talked a little bit, but I'm in the process of buying a house, and that is a life-changing process. There's so many things to think about. Like, you're taking out a loan, you're trying to find a property, you're trying to make sure you don't get screwed. On top of all that, you're not a real estate expert. Yes, I read a book. Yes, I looked at YouTube videos. Yes, I talked to friends. I feel like I didn't even know enough to actually purchase. And what's funny is I've actually purchased a few homes before. So when I graduated, well, when I had my second or third job, when I was working for Cisco, a company called Cisco, a buddy and I, we bought a house, but that was different because we split it 50-50. So I felt like the risk wasn't, as it wasn't as risky or whatever. It was like, hey, if something happens with one of our jobs, then there's another income, we can cover it. It wasn't as a high mortgage, and it wasn't something I was going to be moving into because I was still early in my career and kind of moving around. But the house I'm buying now, it was I'm responsible for the full mortgage, right? There's no backup. I was trying to get all the decisions right, and you can never ever do that, but you can try. And one of the key topics that came up was whether or not to take a 15 or a 30-year mortgage. One of my best friends who's financially astute, his take was, nah, dude, just buy a 15-year mortgage, lock that in. You'll get a better interest rate, and in 15 years, you'll own your house. And that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, 15 a year, what if I want to leverage money to do different investments? And I'm locked into a 15 year and I'm paying more for my mortgage. That gives me less money to invest. And if I do a 30 year, I always have the option of paying it down or paying the principal down when I make extra money, get commission checks, or come into, a lump sum of money, or, I get that inheritance from my great-great-great-granduncle. So great-granduncle, if you're out there and you have $1 million for me, please give it to me now. I could really, really use it. So with that said, let's look at some opinions on taking out a 15 versus a 30-year mortgage. And then I'll give you my opinions and thoughts at the end.
Never buy a house on more than a 15-year mortgage. Absolutely crazy. Don't do that.
How a 30-year loan can actually save you a lot more money than a 15-year.
If you just got a 15-year instead of a 30-year, you would have saved $120,000.
How carrying a 30-year mortgage will provide you with over $500,000 more in your retirement.
We used to really preach 15-year mortgage is hard. I mean, we used to say it just made sense.
It's always better, in most cases, to do a 30-year or the longer term.
All right, so as you can see, the opinions are all over the place. Some people say 15, some people say 30. I'm kind of going with the 30, but I saw this cool video on Everything Money, and let's look at that and see what he says, and I think he has a good point.
Have you seen this video over and over on the internet? Dave Ramsey or some other guru will tell you that paying off your mortgage in 15 years will save you over $100,000 in interest.
Never buy a house on more than a 15-year mortgage. Absolutely crazy.
First of all, everybody's frying Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey makes so much money. He's wrong a lot. Not that he's wrong a lot, but his opinions are always based on people having a ton of money or just being able to sacrifice everything. He's like, hey, don't do anything, move out to bumfuck, I don't know, Kansas, and enjoy your life and love it. While he's right logically and rationally, it's bro, you don't take, he doesn't take any human psychology into take. I guess, he wants you to sacrifice everything, and he expects you to have just a ton of money lying around, which most Americans or most people in the world don't. I know I'm going off on a tangent and I said this would be 15 minutes, but Dave Ramsey just always just says these statements that just aren't, he has like one point of view and it's like never, it's like there's no nuance in it. And that's my only problem with him. But what do you think, Olivia? Like, how do you feel about my boy Dave?
I don't like him. I think it's one of those things where it's all or nothing. So it's like either you want this house, but you can't spend any money. You can't live your life. You can't do X, Y, Z. I think he does have some good advice, but I think with the advice he's giving, there's a lot of sacrifices you have to make. And I think with life, it's about balance. So balancing, yes, you have money, but you also want to go experience life because you only have one. So if I'm sticking to a really strict budget where I have no wiggle room, am I really enjoying it? But yeah, overall, I don't like them.
Yeah, agreed. I think like you and I are definitely I'm on the same page where it's like it's lazy to have one opinion, and not that everything's perfect, but you can always try to figure stuff out. If you're gonna live life, you're gonna have to understand nuances and even talk about some of them, and not just say, "Hey, here's how everything should be," because that's not really like an accurate statement. Let's get back to what this guy is talking about.
Never buy a house on more than a 15-year mortgage. Absolutely crazy. Don't do that.
You just got a 15-year instead of a 30-year, you would have saved $120,000.
That's absolutely true. It'll save you that much. But what they don't tell you is that this is costing you almost $500,000 in retirement by following this silly process.
Excuse me? A baking powder?
They're committing financial manslaughter. And if you've fallen for this, it's okay. I have too. Let me show you the journey of two people. They're both 35. They both buy the same $300,000 house and assume the same down payment, the same appreciation on the house, a low interest rate of 5%. This is Lloyd. He's a limo driver, and when he buys his home, he gets a 30-year mortgage and he pays $1,288 a month. He doesn't listen to Dave Ramsey. He's perfectly fine with having some low interest debt. This is Mary. She listened to Dave Ramsey, got a 15-year mortgage with a payment of $1,897 a month, which was $609 more than what Lloyd was paying for the same building. At the age of 65, both of them have a house that's paid off, and based on 3% appreciation rate, both houses are worth over $700K. Remember, they both bought the exact same house. Lloyd ends up paying just over $223,000 in interest. Yikes. While Mary pays less than half that, a little over $101,000, which is a big amount of money saved. But here's the key they don't tell you. If Mary would have just invested that extra money, not got a 15-year mortgage, and put it into the stock market that typically returns 10% per year, she could have ended up with Lloyd's money.
No way!
Lloyd had a 30-year mortgage. He had over $600 a month that he could invest into the market at a higher rate of return, and the results are astonishing.
Are you messing with me right now?
Because Mary was so busy paying off her house, she didn't start saving until 50 when her house was paid off. So she ended up putting about $1,900 a month into her savings account and could only save for retirement from age 50 to 65. And at a 10% return, she ends up with around $720,000. And Lloyd, who started saving much earlier, remember, he was saving that extra $600 a month, and he did it for 30 years. He ends up having a little over $1.2 million.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with this take. I like the flexibility. It gives you a 30-year mortgage, gives you flexibility in life, meaning that like if you're not like a multimillionaire and you need money to do other things, you have the option of not necessarily needing to pay down your house all the time. And then even though the stock market is down now, at the making of this video, historically it returns 10%. And I don't need to rehash it, right? We could just take a look at the math. You can actually do more with your money and invest it and get a 10% return as opposed to putting all your money in the house and not getting that 10% return, which gives you more money in retirement. And so based off just this one video so far, my take is, yes, I'm getting a 30-year mortgage on the house that I'm purchasing. And yes, to me, 30-year mortgages are the best unless you just have so much money it doesn't even matter. But for the average person who doesn't have so much money and it does matter, you definitely want to think about reinvesting those funds. Another area that they didn't mention here that I think is key to talk about is your side hustle or what you're doing to make money outside of just your main job, right? So I have a podcast. I also have like a sales training company. And how do I fund all that stuff? I fund it out of my own pocket. With that said, taking on a 15-year mortgage and taking on a higher rate doesn't allow me the capital to be able to create podcasts and videos like this, because I wouldn't have any freaking money to do it, or I'd have less to invest and grow my business. So that's another reason why it's always good to have liquid capital. And since real estate is such a big investment, I would say go with the 30-year. Don't waste that money, right? Don't go to Aspen. Don't buy a Lambo. Don't just blow it. But now you have capital to actually try to secure your freedom and actually try to do something for yourself, is get your side hustle off the ground where you can make residual income or part-time income or passive income, or just have another income stream that you don't have to, that isn't necessarily tied to you having to make a ton of money. Olivia, like, what do you think? I mean, I know we live in, you've already told me about Vancouver, and I'm sure Britain or England isn't any cheaper. I think the 30-year mortgage is the way to go because it gives you more access to capital to do some life things, and allows you the flexibility that if you come into like a big check, then you can easily just put that on the principal, right? It doesn't, picking up a 30-year still allows you to pay off your mortgage early if you come into money. But if you don't, you're not in the position where you can't do other things. Hopefully, and some of that stuff's investing, but I'm curious on your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on the same page as you. I think, while it's great to pay off your mortgage within 15 years, I do think that 30 gives you a bit more flexibility. We were kind of talking earlier about how, what if something comes up, money wise, it gives you that flexibility where you can, even if you, let's say, get a lot of money, you can put it in. Yeah, I would definitely go 30 if it were me buying a house. Yeah, no, same.
15-year versus a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah, Brian, I remember this is something that, when we first started working together, we used to like really preach 15-year mortgage is hard. I mean, we used to say like it just made sense. Get out of debt really quick. You can accelerate. You look at how much interest you'll save over the whole life with a loan. We used to tell people, do that, 15, 15, 15. We would drive that home if your cash flow could support it.
And now look, and this could evolve again, because I will tell you that some of that is sensitive to where interest rates are.
Yep.
My first mortgage on my very first house I ever bought was 6 3/4.
See that, like right now, that sounds so high. Like 6.75% sounds like an insane mortgage rate.
If I could tell you, I celebrated that I got 6 3/4 because it wasn't probably 6 months earlier. It was like 7 1/4. So, and I will tell you that. So it makes sense when that is where rates are. Saving that 0.5%, because that's what 15-year versus 30 years. There's typically about a 0.5% interest rate difference between them. That can be a big deal. But we are in right now a historically super low interest rate environment. So I think it's okay to do a 30-year mortgage instead of the 15-year. And you're probably like, well, why? And I want to give you my experience with the 15-year mortgage. This is actually from my life, what I experienced. And I'm not a debt crusader, but I am definitely a person that you've seen my finances. I don't like debt.
Right.
I mean, contrary to what all you people in YouTube comment section say, I do not like debt. I don't do credit card debt. I mean, I pay it off monthly.
Right.
I don't have any car loans. The only debt I have on my house is a mortgage.
All right. So just a different opinion, but same kind of take, which is, yes, for most of us that don't like debt, I hate debt too, right? Barely have any, because, and the main reason is when you have debt, it just doesn't allow you to do a lot of things, like invest in a business, invest in stocks and everything else. You start comparing interest rates of what you're getting on your portfolio versus X, Y, and Z. But just a second take and the same type of take, right? Which is, if you can afford it, right? Like take the 30-year out because it allows you the flexibility. If the 0.5% is important to you, great. I'm currently buying a house, and my interest rate I think is like roughly 5%. Typically, they've been higher than that. Right, like this gentleman is saying, like he was excited about his 6% mortgage rate when he got it, and he's older than me, so that was back in the day. But my whole point is, I guess 5% is still relatively low, not as low as it was during the pandemic. And so, if you're looking at a 15 or 30 year, here's some key takeaways and things to consider. The first thing is, what else are you doing outside of your life, and have you started to plan for what your future looks like? Which means that you take a 30-year out, and you're going to have that extra cash flow. What are you going to do with it? Right, if you're gonna waste it and blow it, then you should probably take the 15-year. But if you're thinking about stocks, if you're thinking about investing, or you just want to have some life experiences, and then you also have a plan to pay your house off, then I would say do the 30-year. Now, I would just say do the 30-year because it just gives you a ton of more flexibility. You can always pay your house off and make extra payments and still pay your house off early if you ever come into a lump sum of money. But as far as flexibility, being able to live life and still do other things like start a side hustle, invest in stocks, make a heavy, 10% like return in the stock market with that extra money. Takeaway from this video is 15 versus 30 based on my research, based on my personal experience. I think a 30-year mortgage is the best way to go because it gives you flexibility and allows you to do more in life, and you still have the option of paying your house off early when it comes to that point. With that said, if you like stuff like this, you find this helpful, you can definitely hit the like button. You can follow us on various social channels. And if you're on the blog, you can subscribe to our email address. And every time we release a video, you will get that video.